So hello. Welcome back to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe and also support my small business at latricelemonade.com. So today I actually want to talk to you guys about the first AP African American Studies course that is to be offered in high schools. I believe the number now is like 60 high schools. So it's not too many, but it is a step in the right direction. I know just from personal experience, when I was in high school, when I was in even middle school, but mostly high school, yeah, we learned about like African American history, but we didn't learn more than Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and really that's it. You know, it was just, this is all we're going to learn about. That's it. Meanwhile, of white people, we learned every president there is, every other thing that happened over here, everything that happened over there. We got Brits over here, all that. You know, we got Chinese. We learned about all the dynasties, all that. Meanwhile, with Black history, we learned about 3-4 people, at least in my school. So it may different, it may vary for different locations to where people have studied, of course. But I think this is a great thing. All right. The first time I took like a specific African American studies course, I believe was my freshman year, was my freshman year in college. Okay, it was UIUC that I went to. I actually graduated from it. So that's where I learned it from. It was like, I think it was titled Black Studies 1619. I think it was Black Studies or Black American History 1619. 1619 was the first year that slaves were brought, or the enslaved people were brought into the United States. So you would have had to wait until you got over there. Meanwhile, with all of these other kinds of learning, you could just learn it right then and there. Okay. So, with AP courses, I guess it's supposed to be more rigorous. I'm not sure. I know my senior, I only had 2 AP courses. One was AP literature, and I had one that was AP Gov and economics. That was my senior year. I actually had Mr. Franco from my high school. So that's really what it was. It was kind of hard. I was never really a person of history, a student of history, if you will. Because for me, it was just never really taught to me like, oh yeah, this is really, really important. It was always just like, you got to get your math right. That's most important. And you got to learn how to read. And yeah, so it was like, oh, with this other stuff, it's like, yeah, we're just going to shove it down your throat. But I can tell you right now, you ain't really going to use it. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is kind of pointless, right? But no, it is not. All right. It's very important to learn your history. And even at my age right now, I am continuing to learn a lot about different things that are going on. I have a serious fascination for Russia, for example. So that's where a lot of my time and attention is going towards. But with this, we're sticking to African American studies. Now, this is needed because, like I said, you don't learn much in high school about it. Yeah, you learn about slavery and this and that, and hey, let's read some letters about people who were enslaved and whatnot. But you don't know every other thing that happened. I didn't know until I was in college about Rosa Parks, in terms of how she was not the very first person to sit down on the bus. They used her because there was a lady before that. And they were like, yeah, you don't fit our look that we want. So then they ignored that. And then they were like, okay, Rosa Parks, you fit the look that we want. So we're going to utilize you. True story. So it's stuff like that I didn't know. W.E.B. Du Bois. I didn't know about him either. It was a lot of other people I just had no idea about. Different movies. Sankofa, for example. I didn't even know what that was, until I was in class and we had to watch it. And I was like, wow. And it's an excellent movie, by the way. But yeah, I find this to be very important, and not only for Black people to know about our history that is so often being criticized and wanting to be washed away, changed, which is what's happening anyways. All right. So it's not just for them, but it's also for other cultures, other races as well. And this actually brings me to something I read. Now, I love being on Reddit, y'all. Okay. I absolutely love Reddit. I love hearing other people's opinions because I don't talk to many other besides like my family and like two other people. You know what I mean? So for me, being able to look at other people's responses and looking at other people's way of thinking, it's very much helps to fulfill everything for me. All right. So I was thinking about it and I was like so let me see some experiences that people have had with this, right? In terms of African American studies. So I actually was reading a Redditor's post about this, and it's pretty interesting the way that they took what's going on. So this is it's a lengthy post. I will say that. I'm only going to put in 2 sections of it because it goes on for like 6 more paragraphs, and I know y'all don't want to see all that. And if you do, I may link it down below if you guys are interested, or you can see the name and then you could just type in the title. All right. So it actually says, as a white-skinned person in an African American studies class, I feel deeply uncomfortable. I am shocked at how casually racist the classroom environment is. So when I first saw this, I'm like, what you talking about? What do you mean it's racist? What do you mean it's just casually racist? I'm not understanding what you're talking about. So here he gives a little background. So it said, so I had to obviously make okay, so they're talking about how this is not a real account of theirs. Like, this isn't their regular one. They just put something in there so people don't know who they are. All right. So it says, if you recognize it from class, whatnot. So he then says, I'm of Slavic, mostly Russian heritage and have grown up in an economically disadvantaged part of the country where even though I have white skin, I've considered myself a white person for most of my life. I've been a minority demographic for most of my childhood, grew up in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. I also was, with PTSD and whatnot. It says pretty frequently this class asks questions that are along the lines of, how have white people benefited from the privileges of the U.S. society? Which is a valid question. What privileges have you missed out from being a person of color? And literally, how has this history of the violent and oppressive settler colonial empire called the U.S. and free speech being itself a white supremacist colony, patriarchal capitalist idea impacted your life? Or colonial, my bad. So they were saying this breeds insanity. Like, what are you talking about? This seems racist. Why are you making it seem like white people are so bad and black people have it so bad? So he later said, I was speaking in a breakout room for African American studies class, and the discussion was revolved around the discussion question, who do you admire as a dark-skinned person of color? I was talking with a classmate and I said something along the lines of, why does it matter if the person is dark skinned or if they're light skinned? I mean, I'm not exactly sure there's evidence in the literature that proves, in regards to your color and whatnot. So essentially he's saying colorism does not exist. How can you guys ask such racist questions and you think that this is okay? So here's the thing. You have a lot of people, and it's all in ignorance, whether it's warranted or not, whether you choose to be ignorant or not. But it's all ignorance at the end of the day. So you have a lot of people who they just don't know. Because they don't have to experience it. If you're a white person, blonde hair, blue eyed, brown hair, green eyed, white person, it doesn't matter. You're white. You will never experience the struggles that black people experience. Okay. So here's another thing. And this actually went on a little bit more with certain things and in the comment section and whatnot. It was a lot, so I didn't want to add that, but I'll sum it up from what I saw. So he was saying, I'm a disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged person. I struggle too, but you don't see me complaining, essentially is what that is. And it's like, well, yes and no. So your struggle is a different struggle. Now, everyone struggles, okay? Everyone has a different kind of struggle, whether that's mental health, whether that's economic, financially, whatever the case may be, racial, whatever. Everyone has a different kind of struggle. And that is 100% true. No one is knocking the fact that white people can't struggle. Just because you have white privilege doesn't mean that you can't struggle. I get that 100%. No one is denying that. No one is saying that. But on the other hand, on the other side of that, yes, you do struggle. But your struggle is not related to something you cannot change, such as the color of your skin, your physical features. Okay, you cannot change. No one is saying like, okay, well, you're a white person, so I'm gonna discriminate on you because you're white, and I'm gonna make sure that you have the same kind of struggles that these black people over here have. You just don't have that, and that is what white privilege is. So when you think about it, and I was really thinking about this, and I'm like, yo, here's different privileges, because one of the questions was like, what privilege do white people have that you don't? Okay, me, I had a personal experience. We used to go to this beauty supply store or whatnot in my hometown. It was me, my mom, and I think just me, my mom, my sister, me, my mom, my brother, whatever, right? And they were all the way in the back of the store. And then I was looking at something. They were like, "Oh, come back over here, so you could see this." And then I saw it, and they were like, "Can you go check the price or whatnot?" And I'm like, "Okay." And then as I'm walking up there, the thing is all the way down, like all the way down. My hand is all the way down, right? And then I'm walking, and then the Asian guy that owns the beauty supply store, I barely even left them, and we were like whispering, really. All right, because we weren't talking that loud anyways. So there was no way he could have heard us. And then I see him, he's looking down because he has a camera there. He's looking down at the camera, and then he tells us the price, like $6.99. And I'm looking, I'm like, how could he have known that this was, how could he have known this was in my hand? One, because of how it was, there was a lot of like these, those aisles, those shelvings, and where it was, no way could you have seen me unless you were looking at the camera, which I seen that he was looking at the camera. And I remember I walked up a little bit more, and I seen him looking down, and I'm like, oh, okay. So you as a white person are, no one's checking for you. No one's trying to see if you stealing something, okay? In my family, I'm not gonna say I'm the only light skinned, because definitely not. My granny's light skinned, her mom was light skinned, my dad is light skinned. Because he works out in the sun and whatnot, I'm actually a little lighter than he is, but it's a fair amount of light skin. My mom is a little darker skinned than I am. Okay, so it's just in this situation, because we're black and because we're here, and most black people were frequenting this location anyways, in beauty supply stores in general, I was watched on cameras. White people don't have to experience that. No one's checking to see if y'all stealing anything. People think, oh, you're white, you could pass. Okay, I don't care. Oh, let me go see about this person over here. Meanwhile, you could be stealing too. You know what I mean? So this is the thing. It's like, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about being pulled over and possibly just being arrested just because. Being pulled over and possibly getting shot just because they don't like you. You're walking down the street, walking while black, and then someone wants to shoot you, or someone wants to put a freaking knee on your neck. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about people just starting problems with you, going to certain areas like Oklahoma, for example, certain areas over there where it's like pretty much, if you dark, if you black, we killing you, and ain't nothing anyone gonna do about it, and no one's gonna care. So it's like, you don't have to worry about these certain things. You don't have to look at travel videos and being like, black in Germany, because you're afraid that if you go to a certain location, someone may kill you. You know what I mean? Just because you're black. There's just many things that white people just don't have to worry about, and that is their privilege that they have. And I found it interesting that this guy he just didn't think that. He's just like, well, I'm white, I'm just like everyone else. No, you're not. Sorry. As mean as it may seem or whatever, you're not. You're not like us. You don't have that struggle. You don't have people automatically looking down upon you simply because you look a certain way. You just don't have that. So that's why I think it's very important to have these kind of classes, and to allow other people from other backgrounds to learn, because this keeps the ignorance down. you know. What was the other one? Oh yeah, he was talking about light skin versus dark skin. And that's a huge thing as well. You have colorism. You have colorism within your own community, not just from outsiders, but within your own community. You do have that. You know, it's like if you are, you know, a darker skinned person, I can't speak upon that, you know, because I don't have that. For me, I know what happens. 100% I know what happens. But for me, I personally have never really seen that. I know for, you know, with me, people look at me. Oh, she light skinned. Oh, let me, you know. So that's more quote unquote attractive just because my skin is lighter than someone who is not. Other than that, I never really have experienced, and I would love to know if you guys have any specific things within your life that you have noticed from dark skin, light skin, people treating you differently. I personally have not. I noticed that of people who would be mean to me, bully me and whatnot, they were all dark skin or dark to medium skin black females. I mean, that's just what that has always been. For anyone that has ever really had a problem with me in that regard, where they are like actively seeking me out, trying to do something to me, whether it's verbal, whatever the case may be, threats, they've all been dark-skinned black women. That's just a fact. I mean, that's just what has happened with me. You know, why is that? I don't know, you know, but that's something that I've noticed very often. So could that be one of those things where maybe it's some kind of jealousy, some deep rooted hatred for themselves? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying, of course, that every dark skinned black chick got a problem with someone light skinned. No, because that's not true. But in my experiences, that has happened more often than not. Like every time there's been an issue, it's always been a dark skin or medium skin black woman. For me, anyways, you know, so it's very important to look at that. Even during enslaved times, for example, you had the light skin, you know, black chick who was the house in, you know what I mean? Meanwhile, the darker skinned people or brown skinned people they were just pushed aside. I remember I think I was in 8th grade. In 8th grade is when you start learning about the Holocaust and whatnot. And I remember we were talking about it. And in my high school, there weren't many light skinned black people. Not many at all. I could probably count on my hand how many I seen. Okay. It may have changed now, but when I was in school, it was like a rarity for me. Okay. So here was the thing. I remember we were like learning about the Holocaust and whatnot. And I actually had a teacher, and she was like, she singled me out in class in front of everyone. And she was like, well, Alex, she's like, you are light skinned. And at that time, I always wore my hair straight too. Okay. I always wore it straight. So she was like, you're light skinned, you know, you look like this. She's like, if during these times, would you have allowed your family just be out while you're in the house? You know, because you are black. This is just a reality. And she said, would you have done that? Would you have separated yourself so you could have a better life? And I remember during that time, I was like, no. I was like, why would I want to do that? I would be in the house, quote unquote, protected. Not really, because these people are getting raped left and right. But I'm in the house getting, you know, possibly beat and raped. And I'm away from my people when I could just be out there struggling with my people, you know. And I remember I told her, I was like, nah, I'm staying. I'm staying with them. And then she was like, okay. She said, yeah, because you had a lot of people who they would separate themselves, you know. And it's because, and that is a quote unquote privilege as well, because you are lighter, so you are more passable as white. Get the brown paper bag, you pass, you go over here. You're darker than this, you go over here. And that's how that always really was, you know. So I find it very interesting that they are bringing this to fruition, allowing other people, not having to go to college, because not everyone needs to go to college really. So not allowing, you know, not making it so that you have to be in college to learn this kind of stuff. I'm happy that they are, venturing out and, trying to, bring awareness to all of this and allow people to actually know more about African American history and, actually studying it in a more aggressive way versus, yeah, Martin Luther King, he had a cute speech. Malcolm X, he did the thing over there, Islamic. Then we had Rosa Parks, she sat down. All right, next topic, y'all. And versus just doing that, and then you're actually allowing people to look at things in a more critical way. You know what I mean? I don't feel that I should have had to, and you don't know what you don't know. Okay, that's just really what it is. But I don't feel like I should have had to go to college just to know something that I really should have learned in middle school or in high school. You know what I mean? So those are my thoughts and opinions. I want to know what your experiences have been with race. Maybe someone, talked about, something like this and maybe they were ignorant of it. How did you respond? I would love to know down in the comments down below. And until then.